Okay. Comrade Mark?
I'm here, Mata.
Okay, sure. So we will start now, Comrade Mark. So I'll just start with the song. Yeah. Let me put Mark on the spot. Yeah. Okay. Let's Comrade Mark now. Yeah, I will start promptly at 1.
Ooh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Listen, the struggle was not red. I experienced it, being deprived, being oppressed, even confused. It's enough now, we're taking the power back. We're stronger than before, we're proud and too strong. The worst is over. From Cape to Cairo, I'm Morocco to Madagascar. From Cape to Cairo, I'm Morocco to Madagascar.
Good afternoon and welcome once again to the AZAPO online political education series. This afternoon I've got the honor and pleasure of playing host to none other than a comrade, a tested cadre, a leader in his own right, a mover and shaker in society, who in the Black consciousness circles does not need any introduction. I'm playing host to Comrade Mark Mfikoe. He's going to help us unpack the topic for today, which is developing Black youth for self-reliance, prosperity, and liberation. I'm not going to belabor the point more. He will tell us, Hore Mark Mfikoe ke mang, and then I will hand over to him. Comrade Mark, there is the Azanian nation in the world. Talk to us who you are and tell us your thoughts and share your thoughts with us on the topic for today.
Good afternoon, Comrade Natova. It's my honor and pleasure to find myself in the space where I would share with you my thoughts on the topic. But I need to accept that I might not be known by every person that is listening. So as discussed, I would indicate who I am. I am a member of the Black Consciousness Movement for Life. I formally joined the structures of the movement whilst at the University of South Africa, recruited by one Hana Relefuka. I went to the University of the North and joined AZASCO there with Comrade Paledi Selolo, and got introduced to AZAPO in the North by Comrade Don Nkadimeng. So my orientation into BC happened at that time. I went to my first AZASCO Congress, which was at the University of Medunsa, when Sipho Maseko was president. I emerged from that Congress as the National Publicity Secretary, being the publicity sec to Sipho Maseko as president back in the day. The following Congress, which was held in Durban, I was then elected president of the Azanian Student Convention and re-elected to that position twice. And I've stayed in the Black consciousness movement since. From the BC, from AZASCO, I went into AZAPO, where I was part of the education desk. Now in life, as you would know, some of you, I was a lecturer at the university at the age of 22 at the University of South Africa, whilst I was studying towards my honors and then later towards my master's at Wits. So being a student and a lecturer, but at the same time, I was in student politics. I led the organization through the transition in 1994 and had the honor of leading with capable, honest comrades. At the time, the youth leader was Comrade George Beer, who is a general of Azanla. And a whole lot more. Some of them have passed on, were Comrade Stanley Skochana, who were Tamim Mfikoe, who were leading the youth wing at the time. But for some reason, I never graduated into Azayo. From Azasco, I went into AZAPO. And professionally, as I say, worked for UNISA for about 7 years. I then resigned from the University of South Africa to join business. At which point I joined the electrical contracting industry as a manager. Later became owner of Tlhabolo Electrical, which later in life I sold around 2015 to take up the reins as the national director of the Electrical Contractors Association, which is a job that I continue to do today. But the biggest probably qualification that I have, if I was to introduce myself to everyone, is not the BA degree or the BA honors or the masters or the LLB degree, which I all have. The biggest thing is that I'm a Black man, a graduate of the Steve Biko philosophy. That's who I am. I don't know, Comrade Nodoba, whether you want me to go straight into the topic. If you want me to, I will do so.
Yes, Dr. Mfikoe, I think at this point, the country and the world knows who you are. So please delve into the topic, sir.
Thank you. I was asked to talk on developing Black youth for self-reliance, prosperity, and liberation. Immediately, it then says the subject of discussion is Black people. So we need to have an understanding of who Black people are. When we say a person is a Black person, who is this animal? Who is this thing? Who is a Black person? What does it mean? Because you will never be able to even scratch self-reliance. You can't touch prosperity. You will never know liberation if you are a Black person that does not understand what Blackness is. So yes, we are talking Black people, and let us not allow ourselves to do so without articulating that which we see as Black people and the Black condition in particular. Like I've stated in my introduction, I'm a student of the Steve Biko philosophy, and I live this philosophy day by day. The philosophical bedrock that dictates my conduct is Black consciousness without apologizing. Now, on the 3rd of May, 1976, Bantu Biko appeared for the second day in the terrorism trial as a chief witness in defense of 9 Black consciousness leaders, which included Seth Cooper, Nchaupe Mokwape, the giant Mieza of Azania, and Moodley. This was after the BC leaders were arrested following the Viva Frelimo rallies in celebration of the victory of Frelimo in Mozambique against colonization. This is the longest political trial in South Africa. I can tell you now that in this trial, none of the accused fought against Black domination. It was not our thing. In court, under oath, before a hostile judge of the system that sought to dehumanize Black people, Steve Biko rose and explained why SASO decided to call us Black people as opposed to non-whites. He says SASO took a decision to the effect that they would no longer use the term non-whites, nor allow it to be used as a description of them, because they saw it as a negation of their being. They were being stated as a non-something, which implied that the standard was something and they were not that particular standard. They felt that a particular view to life, which is commensurate with the build-up of one's dignity and confidence, should be contained in a description which you accept. And they sought to replace the term non-white with the term Black. I can't talk Black youth self-reliance, Black youth prosperity and liberation, without locating them within the Black experience. Black consciousness was a unique approach in the country introduced by SASO back then. It entered the contest deliberately in the battle of thoughts. It was understood back then that the fight was about the mind of a Black person. It was during this time that BC quite eloquently submitted that the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. It sought to strengthen and conscientize the minds of the oppressed. A conscientized mind is incapable of taking oppression lying down. That's us, that's the Black consciousness movement. One of the programs that SASO had was Compassion Day. What was the purpose of Compassion Day? The main theme of Compassion Day was to get students to develop a social conscience, to see themselves as part of the community, and to direct their energies at solving problems of the Black community. I see development for prosperity and liberation in this context. It must be inspired by Black love. Biko further submitted that Black consciousness refers itself to the Black man and his situation. The Black man is subject to 2 forces in this country. He is first of all oppressed by an external world through institutionalized machinery, through laws that restricts him from certain things, through heavy work conditions, through poor pay, through very difficult living conditions, through poor education. All these are external to him. Secondly, and this BC regards as the most important, the Black man in himself has developed a certain state of alienation. He rejects himself precisely because he attaches the meaning white to all that is good. In other words, he associates good and he equates good with white. This arises out of his living and it arises out of his development from childhood. When you go to school, for instance, your school is not the same as the white school. The Black kids normally have got shabby uniforms, shabby schools. Sometimes they are under a tree. No uniform at school. The white kids have uniforms and they look great. You find even in the organization of sports at white schools, they are absolutely thorough and indicative of good training and upbringing. Biko makes the point that if there are 15 white rugby teams in a tournament and 3 Black rugby teams, each of the white teams would be having a complete set of uniforms and the 3 Black teams would share one incomplete set amongst themselves. That is the context within which Black consciousness is located. Sadly though, the observations that Mfikoe made when I was 8 years old continue to this day. Black people still don't love themselves enough. We still consider whiteness to be superior. We are able to ride the taxi in town where white people and white rules apply and carry with us a can of cold drink that we were drinking in the taxi. Even if we finish the drink whilst in town, we carry the can with us and even throw it through the window as soon as we enter the township or village where Black people live, because we associate ourselves with dirtiness and filth. Developing Black youth for self-reliance, prosperity, and liberation is what we're talking about. But Blackness is much more important. And Blackness defines the context within which self-reliance, prosperity, and liberation can happen. We cannot be regarded as Black youth if we do not understand that the most important battle that we must win is a psychological one that says that nobody is innately, naturally better than us simply because we are Black. Otherwise, you will just be developing as another lucky person who collided with opportunities. You must first of all be Black and have a sense of community. Love yourself and love Black people, and hate the Black condition enough to commit yourself to make a contribution in whatever form to make things better. I led a student organization which took over the organization space that was occupied by SASO. The SASO whose first president was Stephen Pantupiko. They took a resolution 42 of 1971 of SASO. Go check it out. It says, SASO is a Black student organization working for the liberation of a Black man. First, from psychological oppression by themselves through inferiority complex, and secondly, from the physical oppression accruing out of living in a white racist society. This is a student organization, Resolution 42 of 1971. They're not talking about students and their struggles on campus. No, they're saying SASO is a Black student organization working for the liberation of the Black man. These are freedom fighters. Students, yes, but these are freedom fighters, and they've identified for themselves what the object of liberation is, what the object of their activism is. First, from psychological oppression by themselves through inferiority complex, in other words, self-oppression. And secondly, from the physical oppression accruing out of living in a white racist society. A competent young Black person must commit to this value or forget about making a meaningful contribution, forget about self-reliance, forget about prosperity, and forget about liberation. Liberation is the bigger value. Mfikoe says, we are looking forward to a non-racial, just, and egalitarian society in which color, creed, and race shall form no point of reference. This ideal is yet to happen. This ideal has been betrayed. South Africa did not become Azania. Blackness remains a point of reference. Our social conditions still reflect apartheid living conditions. The shack life, the filthy life, the township life, the forgotten villagers' life, the measly wages life, the workers' life, the waterless life, the violence-ridden life, the poor man's life remains the life of a Black person. Race has a point of reference, even if the ruler shares the same skin color as me and you. Blacks remain second-class citizens. We remain on the periphery of bestness. You don't believe me? Well, let us examine the conditions that Mfikoe observed on the 3rd of May, 1976. He says, trains are overcrowded all the time. Are they not overcrowded today? He says, taxis, they are also overcrowded all the time. Are they not overcrowded today? He says, the whole traveling situation is dangerous. Is it not dangerous today to a Black person? And by the time a guy gets to work, he has been really through a mill. He gets to work, there's no peace either at work. His boss sits on him to eke out of him even the last effort in order to boost up production. This is the common experience of the Black man. when he gets back from work, through the same process of traveling conditions, he can only take out his anger on his family, which is the last defense that he has, but it is the only place where he is able to exercise power. I ask you, young man with tears in my eyes, what has changed? I know the government consists of those that used to be with us in the liberation struggle, and that the slogans were the same in some respects, but the Black condition remains disposed of the land, power, dignity, and the most basic of human rights. This means that liberation is still that elusive target that we are yet to achieve as Black people. A Black man said to Mfikoe, and by the way, this Black man, Mfikoe makes the point. Yeah. Sorry, my apologies. A Black man said to Mfikoe, and this Black man was of Indian origin. He said, I no more work in order to live. I live in order to work. The antithesis is as follows. Black is beautiful. It says, Black man, you are okay as you are. Begin to look upon yourself as a human being. Now, in African life, especially, it has also other connotations. It is the connotation of the way in which our ladies prepare themselves for wooing by society. In other words, the way they dress, the way we behave, the way they make up, and so on, which tends to be a negation of their true sense and running away from their color. They use lightening creams, they use straightening devices for their hair, and so on. They believe that their natural state, which is a Black state, is not synonymous with beauty. And beauty can only be approximated by them if the skin is made as light as possible, an approximation of whiteness. Now, any young Black person will never be able to achieve through self-reliance. He will never be able to achieve liberation. He will never be able to achieve prosperity if his dream is to be an approximation of whiteness. I said earlier that we did not realize Azania. This means that we live in a reformed South Africa, in which there is no change in power relations, and the economic system is capitalist. It is survival of the fittest, or the prosperity of the connected. Very little rewards for hard work. We live in a competitive country where our capacity to compete successfully is held back by the historical reality of our existence. We are excluded even from shanty places of business like Maravastad, yet we dominate shops as consumers. When we get money, the situation is what we are going to consume it by, not how we're going to make it work for us. We then even use this reality as entertainment on television, and we call it I blew it. The egalitarian society, where race is not a point of reference, has not been achieved. It is a dream derailed. Are Black people punch drunk, or can we rally ourselves back to achieve Black youth development, prosperity, and liberation? Liberation would mean that no one rules us without pleasing us and fixing our condition. If we love Blackness and Black people and have the right emotional connection with the Black community, it will not matter how others take us. And however many they are, we will drive the Black agenda. A few pointers. One, when we learn a craft, a skill, or a profession, we must do so not with the aim of being employees of the white establishment, but rather to be employers of others, particularly our own. We must learn all these skills with the aim of generating businesses that will suffocate us with opportunities to expand and employ our own. When we employ our own, that's B, treat them well. I know that we live within a capitalist system, but we are a critical majority of the people living in this country as Black people. Employ your own people in your own private businesses and reward them with dignity within the economic means of the business. When Black people have established commercial enterprises, support them as a business person and as a community member. This thing of respecting a service only if it is supervised by a white person, irrespective of the fact that it was delivered by Black people, must stop. Black people built the Mall of Africa. They got the opportunity to do so because they were employed by white people as employees. If they were standing on their own, they wouldn't have gotten the job. White business have the largest assets under management today in the asset management space in this country. The assets, by the way, are Black owned, and yet Black asset managers struggle to get a piece of the pie from Black owners. These Black owners are the Black trade unions whose trustees run retirement funds in South Africa. 4, when we have been given an opportunity, let us realize that we are starting from a position where the belief is that we will fail. I repeat, when we have been given an opportunity, let us realize that we are starting from a position where the belief is that we will fail. We are duty-bound to deliver excellence, excellently. We cannot afford to leave a chance to anyone who would love to have another chance to criticize our works and say we did not deserve the chance. Big point, we must support our own. 6, we must develop our own communities and create opportunities for development. We must look at our communities and realize that every problem we solve is an opportunity to create prosperity and increase the opportunity for meaningful life. We all eat bread, create bakeries in our communities, and let us support them. We all eat meat, create butcheries that are competitive to the likes of Roots and Meat World, and feed our people competitively. We all eat pap. Where is our milling companies? Black people go to animal auctions every week, and largely we go there to sell. If an animal is owned by a Black person at these white-owned auctions, where largely the buyers are white, the animals get sold cheap. When the animal is white-owned, the bidders go up and it is sold at the right price. Each time you sell an animal, you feel robbed. Start our own animal auctions in our villages. Let us start our own things today. Believe me now or believe me so later, we dominate the market of consumers. We do. Black people buy. White people sell. White people sell to a point where they even sell us as labor to this day. Power relations have not changed. It doesn't matter who is president. Your employer is your boss. 7, understand what it means to be Black and commit to changing these conditions. If you are only interested, you are weak. If you are committed, you're strong. 8, by the way, it is not just a battle for thoughts that we have failed to win. So let us analyze the situation correctly. It is the regulations that continue to keep us in bondage and the societal organization we live in. In this South Africa, in this free South Africa, in the villages, you cannot have 2 restaurants with a liquor license operating next to each other. Do you know that? Yet in the cities, shopping malls and other centers where white people live, you literally have these outlets on top of each other in this so-called free South Africa. In the villages, you cannot get a bond to build a house. And there is no title deed that allows you to participate in the lucrative property trade. Do you know that? You cannot use your village home to raise capital. Do you know that? In this free South Africa. Yet, this is seen as some sort of a free country where we should all compete and have a warm, fuzzy feeling of being a liberated people and celebrate on the 27th of April. Youth development, youth prosperity, and youth liberation cannot be realized if we do not diagnose correctly. The thesis that keeps Black people down and oppressed. A young Black person that doesn't understand Blackness and commit himself to the eradication of Black oppression cannot be used as an instrument to achieve Black youth development. He cannot be used as an instrument to achieve Black liberation. He cannot be used as an instrument to pierce and achieve Black prosperity. Yes, there are irrepressible individuals, but these are an exception, and maybe they are lucky. The right environment must be created. The environment in which we deliberately refuse to accept that in this country, where the overwhelming majority of us is Black people, we will remain powerless and weak must be eradicated. Self-reliance in the context of capitalism and structural oppression can only happen by means of communalism, in my view. In realizing that the same mechanic that fixes your car at the BMW dealership in town does not lose his capability when he does so away from white supervision in the city. A realization that an electrical wireman in your village does not lose his knowledge and skills simply because he now works for himself and not a white man from somewhere. A realization that a plate of steak prepared in Maboloka is from the same cow as the steak that you pay 3 times more for in Sandton. That the packet of chips made by Masego in Jericho is probably better than one made of recycled fish oil at some shop in Brits. Self-reliance doesn't mean that you rely on yourself. It means you rely on your people because they also rely on you. Don't expect your people to give you support when your choice is not to support them. Black people cannot afford to compete. I repeat, Black people cannot afford to compete. They must collaborate. They must work together. When Black people in business have had a few drinks after a round of golf in Houghton, you would hear them say, no Black on Black violence in business. How I wish they could practice that when they are sober. Avoid opulence and give space for community upliftment as a matter of course. Accept this as part of the cost of doing business in your community. Not because some law says so. Let us be. Let it be because your emotional connection with Black people is that strong. If we are not conscious of who we are, if we have not formed an emotional connection with our communities, as people, as a people, we will not see liberation. We will not see self-reliance. We will not see development and prosperity, simply because we would have lost who we are. That is key. Thank you, Comrade Nadova and the listeners.
Thank you, Comrade Ntate Mfikoe. Quite thought-provoking ideas that you shared with us. I would like to take you on a number of issues that you raised. One of them that stands out for me, and I think for the listeners and the viewers, is the idea of the appropriation of whiteness. And you also then went on to then say, race in this country is a point of reference. Now, given that, Black youth and Black people in general would then be in that milieu, for lack of a better word, right, where race determines everything. We have heard you talking about self-reliance gives birth, it should give birth to actually collaboration and not individualism. Now, how do we realize the things that you have raised in Ntate Mfikoe when we are in this milieu that is in opposition to all the things that you said, primarily because of the syndrome of the appropriation of whiteness, that the dominant discourse and everything to envy for is this appropriation of whiteness? Is this which whiteness represents? One might then also say that Mfikoe, with all these good ideas of Black consciousness, Biko, AZAPO, why is it that these ideas are not resonating with the Black people, with the Black youth, and the Black business people like yourself? Why do they only talk when they are not sober? But when they are sober, they don't do these things. Isn't it that white appropriation has taken the better of us? Isn't it because that the mind, as Biko has said, is the potent weapon of the enemy, and that we are captured in terms of the mind? How do we realize these things that Mfikoe, given these realities?
Yeah.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mata. To me and you, the answer is easy. We were lucky, and then we became selfish. I did not put myself in the space deliberately to be able to encounter the people that I encountered in my life that got to teach me Black consciousness.
Okay.
We found ourselves in the space. We allowed ourselves to be organized. We allowed ourselves to be taught. Black consciousness did not come through us to us through osmosis. It was deliberate act of education. We read the literature of the movement. Our selfishness is that we did not go out to teach it. As a matter of fact, we allowed that concept of non-racialism, which Biko defeated along with his colleagues when they moved away from UNISA to go and set up SASO. We allowed that to win today. And the arguments that they had raised against that concept, that it means retention of BASCAP, is actually what we are experiencing today. They defeated it then, but we allowed it to come back because we did not fight strong enough. Now, what do we do is your question.
Yes.
The simple answer is, let us teach BC. Let us teach Black consciousness. Let us not just teach it in the way of attacking the mind, but let us teach it in the manner in which we conduct business. And I'm looking here at the comment from one Kosinat, who says, auction, you got it right there. I'm an example of that, as I am a livestock farmer. It happens in every facet of life. I can give you many anecdotes. The whole thing is that we need to be conscious of the fact that you are paid the way you are paid, that you are treated the way that you are treated because you are Black and nothing else. Is to refuse to allow that another Black person should be treated badly because you are capable of enjoining in each other and having this fight. Now, we can't rely on government, let me tell you that, because the same government that we have goes and calls a rally into a stadium of hundreds and thousands of people. And in that meeting, in that rally, they complain about the conditions of Black people, and yet they are supposed to be in power. They complain about our conditions, as our living conditions as people. And why don't they simply just get things right and do them? So we can't rely on those.
Okay. Because
their dosage of BC, if it ever existed in them, has disappeared. I don't know any other way of being able to confront the anti-Black thesis other than a heavy dose of Black consciousness. And all the organizations, AZAPO included, that operate within the Steve Biko philosophy of Black consciousness need to have a look at themselves and say, are we doing right by Black people? Where we are right now, are we doing right by Black people? Given the fact that we know what we know, Given the fact that we understand the Black condition the way we do, are we doing right by Black people? It calls for intervention by organized Black consciousness adherents.
Ntate Mfikoe,
Yes.
let us come with this hypothetical situation.
Yeah.
A Black youth sitting somewhere there somewhere in a corner in Azania in South Africa says, Ntate Mfikoe, I hear you and I agree with what you are saying. However, the reality is today we are faced as the youth, as the Black youth, we are faced with what we call the dance floor of survival of the fittest. This concept that you are now sharing with us of self-reliance being communal as opposed to being individual does not work, because here is a survival of the fittest. Now, if you look at the stats that were given by Stats SA in 2019, the reality was South Africa has the highest unemployment rate at 56% of the youth. And 31% of that unemployed youth happen to be graduates. Not that Mfikoe, graduates. People that society has invested in, the Black society invested in them, in their education, to be able to come and make a difference. They come into this capitalist, non-racial inspired rainbow South Africa, where the norm is survival of the fittest. How then can they do the sorts of things that you say they must be able to do? There we've got graduates in Mfikoe, 31% unemployed. What are your comments?
Thank you, Mata. I made the point during my opening submission that when we learn and go to school and learn a craft or a skill, we shouldn't do so with a quest to be employees.
Okay.
We shouldn't do so with a quest to being employees. We shouldn't. I do not understand why we are not able to create value-adding time usage as university graduates or graduates of trades. Now imagine a person that says, I'm a qualified electrician, but I don't have a job. Mm-hmm. Imagine a person that says, I'm a qualified builder, but I don't have a job. Mm-hmm. How do you get to that point? As a Black person that has been properly liberated in the head. Now, here I go. Mm. And we are talking about this thing and saying survival of the fittest and self-reliance.
Yes, yes.
Self-reliance means that those of us that are riding together will be able to feed off each other. Survival of the fittest means that you trample upon others in order for you to succeed. The stronger Black value is that of self-reliance together. One does something else and I use that which he uses in order for me to develop something else. Now let us be practical and leave the theory aside. And I will use myself as an example. You do know, Comrade Notova, that the first time I went out to work and earn a living, I was a teacher at the University of South Africa. I left the University of South Africa 7 years later to go and work in the electrical contracting arena. Who did I work for? When I went there, I had 2 university degrees. I had 2 diplomas. But who was I working for? Who was my boss? My boss was a person that had studied a 3 months diploma from Damelin and had a certificate in lighting technology, a man called Gary Abramson. Now, I had spent how many years at school studying? And then I come and I meet a person that has got a lighting technology qualification. We took him a year and a 3-month diploma from Damelin. And that's my boss. And that's the person that is able to pay me more than what the University of South Africa paid me, to a point where I walked away. For the first time in my life, I actually regretted the fact that I did not learn a trade. When we learn things in order to be employed. But this is where it comes from. That trade person that is white is going to meet a white consultant and a black consultant somewhere. They are going to give him a job. They are going to give him the Mall of Africa to do. They will not give it to me as the black person. They won't. They will give it to a white contractor to go and do that job. That white contractor then is seen as a powerful employer. But who has given him a job? The person that has given him a job is, in some instances, another black consultant who would not have given that job to me. The opportunities for black people to do work are immense in this country. They are huge. The only thing is the concept that black people still disrespect each other, the fact that black people still hate each other, means that they will not extend to each other opportunities that they should be extending, so as we are able to generate employment amongst ourselves. It will not happen because this is us. That's the way in which we look at each other. The opportunity rather go elsewhere. If we do it amongst each other, it doesn't come through. My brother, and the very clear thing is the organization called government. That organization is dominated by black people, right? In all these major tenders, who do they give them to?
White people.
Sometimes they give it to a name with a company with a black name, but who actually does the job? It's not us. It's not us. Sometimes when we get given that job, we come in as subcontractors. As a subcontractor, you get given a job to do it at the rates that are cheaper than the rates of the guy that got the job. In other words, he makes profit out of you. You are an extension of his labor. But if black people took a deliberate decision amongst themselves that we will make opportunities available to black folk, we would really, really do well. But the opportunities are there, the opportunities are vast. Let me give you a small example. In the villages, every person has got a huge yard that they are using for nothing. All it has is a house at the corner and a whole land that sits there unused. Right? To these days, every person gets some sort of a grant, some 350, whatever. Every person gets something. If 4 families clubbed together and each one of them bought 100 broiler chickens, they will produce 400 broiler chickens every 6 weeks. Where is hunger? Where is unemployment? Where does it begin to exist? In all these places, you go to every garage, you are going to find that they are selling wood for braai, right? In the villages where we live, there's a bush. But it is not us that make proper money out of those things where we are. It is not us. You understand? All I'm trying to say to you, my bro, as a town, is that there are opportunities available for black people. It's just that as black people, we want to be employed. And when you have got extra money, we want to find a new expense for that money. Some shoe somewhere, or some trousers somewhere, or some skirt called John Bulligate somewhere. We find a reason why the money needs to be spent on something in order to enhance the way we look, because consciously there is something in us that we need to enhance our sense of dignity.
Ntate Mfikoe, Mata,
Yeah.
are you saying the fault is not in our stars that we find ourselves in this situation, but the fault is in us as a people?
Exactly.
Do I hear you correctly? But now, can we, now I want us to drill it down. What you have said makes one to really think, and it hits home. This culture, or this thinking, this metaphysics in our society called consumerism. Whenever we've got something, we want to spend it on an expense. Is that not the norm of society that we live in? Is that not what the capitalist society is generating? We are living in this capitalist society, but the political dispensation that we have is a neo-colonial political system. Like you correctly said, the reforms, the table remains where it is. You just shift around the chairs, but everything stays as it is. Now, the question that I have for you is, having listened to you very carefully, and as some of the questions are coming up as well in the chat and also in the Q&A, the issue that comes up in Ntate Mfikoe is, how do I, as a youth, how does this society develop me to develop or cultivate that self-reliance? How can I aspire to prosperity when I am in a capitalist economic system that by its own design is meant to do exactly the things that you are criticizing us of doing as Black people, of being consumers, of being people who want to be employees instead of employers? Now, people will argue, the youth will argue, that 31% of the graduates will argue that, but it's not us. It is this education system that we are receiving that makes us to be able to have that particular outlook on life and in the economy, that we get these skills in order to go and sell our labor to someone, not for us to be able to become entrepreneurs. So the entrepreneurial, right, approach in the curriculum is not there. Now, how then do we blame the youth? 31% in Ntate Mfikoe is sitting there unemployed. Yeah. What would your take be on what I'm saying? The capitalist economic system that is there and the neoliberal political approach that is there are the things that arrest that development of the youth. And the youth say, we really want to do something. And later on, I'll come in with the NYDA to then say, because government can argue that they're creating those opportunities. But let me hear what your take is on what I've said. Just summarizing some of the comments of the viewers.
Thank you. Firstly, I acknowledge, and I'm sure Black consciousness would be the first philosophical orientation to acknowledge that its best place in order to thrive towards self-reliance is within an egalitarian society that Biko described. We are not there. We did not reach Azania. We are still in a reformed South Africa. We did not reach Azania. But accepting that this is where we are, within this capitalist environment, why are we not on the other side of capital? Why are we on the consumer side of capital, not on the selling side of capital?
Okay. Okay.
Like, why?
Because
Like
we don't have the means. Because we don't have the means, Ntate Mfikoe.
I've heard that argument many times.
Yes.
And I will tell you that 100 broiler chickens cost 950 rand.
Okay.
I hear you telling me that 950 rand is probably beyond the reach of others. That other asked me whether he has spent money on 100 bottles of Savannah in the previous little while, or Castle Light or Black Label. So it is too much money to spend if it comes to the purchasing of broiler chickens in order to sustain yourself and generate income. But it is affordable when it comes to spending it on Savannah, consuming Savannah in order to be a little drunk and then pee it off. Is that it? I've had arguments about raising capital and all sorts of things. Me and you know, Comrade Noto, that if you do not save a little bit of what you are able to generate at any given time, you will not have money.
Yeah.
So you will not have anything available to you in order to be able to develop something. I don't know this guy that runs this company called 360 very well, Angela Makad or something like that. I don't know him very well, but there's one thing I listened to when he was addressing the gala dinner of the Black Business Council the other day. He said he actively in his own business encourages his employees to have a side hustle. Because when you have created a side hustle as an employee, chances are good that you don't have the time to go and do that side hustle yourself. That means that you are going to be able to employ another. You might not pay them too much, but at least you would have been able to generate something for them to be able to do something. So if every employee employed today amongst the Black community generated some sort of a side hustle, anything, and I'm not just giving you theory, Comrade Nadova, I do side hustles. I do sheep, I do goats, I do cattle. I'm looking to do chicken. There's a hustle. Those sides to earn an honest living and settles elsewhere, because that is the way in which we need to do things and be able to stretch the rent. You stretch your salary. I said to my other colleague the other day that me, when I receive my salary on the 25th, come the 31st, I've increased that salary by at least 10% because I've used it to generate some income. So that is an acknowledgement that your access to resources are limited and you need to be creative about that which you receive and generate something with it. So I ask you, why are we not on the seller side of the capitalist arrangement? Why are we comfortable to be on the buyer side? Why are we on the consumer side?
No, I hear you, Ntate Mfikoe. I think as I hear some of the thoughts coming from the viewers, is we might answer that question by saying we might be on the consumer side because, like you initially said, me and you, Ntate Mfikoe, my town, we became selfish. by not educating to liberate. Now, there is an idea here that is coming up, and you'll tell me what your take is on it, to say, how do we practically, now they want to tease your mind on this, how do we practically organize this 31% of the unemployed graduates so that they must be able to work together, firstly, and secondly, to get into what we have just shared with us, to hustle and understand and know the positive spin-offs of hustling. How do we practically bring them together, given the situation that we've got now in the country? Like we have said, we just want to consume and consume. So how do we bring them together? How do we raise their consciousness? How do we bring them out of that cocoon, right, of becoming or playing victim as it is? Practically, do you have got some ideas on that, Mfikoe, that you can share with us, my town?
Tough. The only thing is what I'm doing. The only thing is what I encourage those that are around me to do. But let's get back specifically to your question. What is it that we do to get those that are out there unemployed to be able to rally together to be employed? It would require a deliberate organization.
Okay.
There are some opportunities in government, like you mentioned, the NYDA and such like. The only problem is that you are limited by the extent of your connections. It is called a network. So if your network is not going to give you access and it's not going to have things easily available to you, you are in trouble. So let us accept that we do not get help from that side and say that the help needs to be coming from us. It is guys like you and me that need to identify the talent that is available, identify the value add. Because for every problem in a community that you are able to find a solution for every solution you find you have generated the capacity to earn income. I'm going to repeat. For every problem that exists in any community, once you are able to find a solution to that problem, you have unlocked an income generating potential. Every product that you buy everywhere was designed to solve one problem you have. And because you want to deal with that problem, you are going to spend money to sort out that problem. You spend money on food because you're hungry. You spend money on water because you need it in order for you to survive. It was a problem. You spend money on roads because you have a problem that you need to identify. That, you understand? Every single service, every single product that you go and consume was generated to solve your problem. So we know that our communities are problem-ridden. The solutions we don't even need to generate. My brother, I've traveled.
Yeah.
I have learned the way in which society works. Now, you tell me, what is the business of Tiger Wheel and Tie?
The business of Tiger Wheel and Tie. Replace tires for cars and so on and whatever.
They don't produce one tire.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't manufacture one tire.
Yeah.
Their business is to distribute tires that have been generated by others. They are simply a middleman.
Yeah.
Somebody manufactures a tire somewhere. They are sitting here. All that they are saying is that we are a distribution channel of the same tire that was produced at Firestone or Dunlop or any of those people. Now I'm saying, how easy a business is that? Why are we not, and yet we drive out of the townships to go and buy tires where? At Tiger Wheel and Tire, when we can have our own distribution agency in our township. Yeah? So you don't have to manufacture a tire in order for you to sell it. All that you establish is a distribution mechanism. You are the access to the market. Now, my brother, why don't we have such credible access to market distribution channels in Alexandria?
Someone might
Because
argue,
you don't need, Comrade Nodova, you don't need to manufacture tire in order for you to sell it. And for some reason, we understand it when it comes to selling bread, because we don't make bread in the township shops, and yet we sell it, but we can't sell the same tire. We don't make it, it gets manufactured elsewhere. We are the distribution point. Let me tell you another thing, is that you walk into Tiger Wheel and Tire today and look for a tire. They don't even have it.
yeah.
You give them your money. They are going to use your money to go and buy that tire, and they will tell you to come and install it tomorrow. They don't even keep stock. So what capital are we talking about? Because the capital that they are using is your own money. You walk in, they say a tire, 2,000 Rand. 4 tires, you give them 8,000 Rand. They go and they get it from Firestone for 6,000 Rand. They pocket the 2,000 Rand. They buy the tire with your 6,000 Rand. It comes through to the place. They phone you, come and install. They've kept your 6. They've paid with your 6. They've kept your 2. What capital? What capital?
Yeah, yeah. The questions that you're asking us, Ntate Mfikoe, make us to think, and one can feel the passion that comes out in what you're saying. And you are indeed right, because the question asked you about practical things, and you have shared with us practical stuff. But here is another view that says we might not be able to have our own wheel, Tiger Wheel and Tire, call it Anodoba Mfikoe Wheel and Tire. We are not able to have it in Jericho because the Nodobas and the Mfikoes in their families and other people and friends, there is this PhD syndrome. The pull him or her down syndrome among the Nodobas and the Mfikoes. The jealousy among ourselves as to who does the Nodobas and the Mfikoes think they are to prosper, while we, the X's and the Y's, don't prosper. We're going to make sure that they don't prosper. And as a result, we don't support each other as Black people. Who bewitched us to be able to have that? So how do we deal with that? Because that's what actually drags us backwards. How do we deal with that? The fault is not in our stars, but in us.
Not.
Yeah. So how do we? Yeah. So now that is what that is the kind of questions that I'm being faced with now. How do we respond to that? Because that's what happens in our communities. How do we deal with it?
2 questions, 2 answers. One is that we need to deliver competitive products, both in terms of quality and price. That's the one. Because it doesn't matter how much a person might feel. It doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, they are going to have to take a commercial decision that says, am I getting the product at the right price? And am I getting the right quality? So the quality and the price arrangement needs to be sorted out, because as far as distribution is concerned, you are already leading that race, because they don't need to drive out of the township. You are going to be giving it to them exactly where they are. The second element is the toughest of them, and that is the mental side. For that, it's a serious dose of Black consciousness. I do not think that the Jewish people became the way they are simply because they were born that way.
Okay.
Matawa, Jewish people support each other. They support each other without apology. They support each other's businesses. You'll think that they are rivals. I worked for Standard Electrical, for Gary Abramson. I later became a partner there. Gary Abramson is a Jewish man. They had another company called Buzzard Electrical. I knew Buzzard Electrical to be our competition to a point where I even hated them. I would meet a Buzzard Electrical vehicle in the street and hate them. One day, I get a call from Gary Abramson and he says to me, meet me at the Buzzard Electrical. They are in trouble. We must help them. Yeah? These are two Jewish-owned businesses. They get to know that the one is in trouble. He was a rival, but I get a call to say, meet me at Buzzard Electrical. They are in trouble. We must help them. At the time, Buzzard Electrical was doing what is known as the Gold Reef City Casino. You know that Gold Reef City Casino next to... They were doing the electrical installation there. They were doing the electrical installation at Mainland Shopping Center. They had run out of money. Okay. Gary Abramson got to know as another Jewish man that a Jewish company is in trouble. He said, Mark, meet me at Buzzard Electrical. They are in trouble. We must help them. Yeah? If it is us as Black businesses, what do? They are in trouble. Take advantage of it.
We rejoice.
Yes. We even take a drink in celebration of the downfall of another. Okay. I have worked, and maybe I was lucky, but when I moved out of the academic field, I worked within a Jewish group of companies. I was the group HR director there. And I got to understand the manner in which those people help each other. They've got an adage, they've got a saying that no Jewish person is going to let another Jewish person go to sleep hungry. So these are the values that we must teach. And those values resonated with me because I'm a student of BC.
Okay.
Of helping one another, of identifying the need to help and not the need to laugh at the downfall of others.
Okay. So Ntate Mfikoe, we are saying we need a new ethos as a people among ourselves. There is a comrade here whom I'm going to allow to speak. We do this ready, Comrade Misha Kalikutli. His hand has been up for quite some time. I think he's an educator. I think he's got an earth-shattering point maybe to make. Comrade Mesh,
I know that.
Come in with your point?
Yes, my tower, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible, Tawa.
Yes, I can.
Yeah. No, I truly appreciate having had an opportunity to be among those who have been listening. As Mark has been going through his presentation or his analysis, one of the things he indicated was that we were fortunate to have come into contact with giants like Muntu, Bradon, Kadimeng, and many others. And we learned from those people. And as a result, we imbibed that BC from them. Now, that's not the situation with the youth today. You see, the youth today are a bit disadvantaged compared to us. With us, we had the white sector being a common denominator in our lack of progress. and we worked towards making sure that we defeat that. But the current youth are in a situation whereby us who understand BC are unable to help them understand this factor, because there is a competing factor here whereby they are being offered shortcuts in life. Be part of us, then you will get this opportunity at the municipality here and there, and they have no time. They see learning as a waste of time. So we are struggling to sort of make BC adapt to this level, to ensure that we are able to reach out to as many youth as we possibly can, so that we can be able to change this consumer mentality into that of being producers. So it is basically saying it is us mostly who understand this concept of Black consciousness, who are unable to let it flow to reach to this unfortunate group who is trapped or who are trapped at a level of waiting to be offered opportunities and whatever connections that may be there to free them from the situation where they find themselves. So we seriously are struggling to reach to them. Basically, that's what I wanted to indicate.
Oh, thank you, Comrade Mesh. Your brief comments, Comrade Mark, as we'll be going to.
Comrade Mesh, you are correct. The role models have hidden themselves. The role models are not coming out. What role models are exposed to young people is those that have been able to achieve things by shortcut, and they see that as the way to go. Back in the day, you are correct. You had the giant Mieza of Azania. You had Comrade Laibon Mavasa. You had icons of this movement, the giant Nefolobodwe of Folobodwe in Venda. You had all these icons with us that had worked Steve, was Trinivasa Mudli. You had all these people that had made themselves available, and the forums existed in the arena of struggle for them to be able to help us learn. The challenge to me and you is that we must begin to teach. The bigger challenge is you can't expect that you will successfully teach BC without ensuring that you are leading a successful exemplary life.
Mm-hmm.
You need to live. I'm not saying be rich. I'm not saying be wealthy. I'm not. I'm saying we need to teach that which others may want to emulate as the way in which life has to be lived. We need to identify a short program for ourselves. Those of us that are in the BC movement and those of us that understand BC. Identify for yourself the need to teach 10 kids or 10 community members every month. Let them understand BC. But let them see BC as you live it. Because if they see BC as you live it, you won't even have to teach it. They will watch you live BC. Today, the opportunities are bigger. Back then, if Mfikoe had to speak to people in Mabopane, he had to travel from the Eastern Cape to come and address the people in Mabopane. Today, I'm sitting in my living room and I'm able to address a whole lot of people. If we organize 10 people each and we said, you know what, at this particular time, I need you around my laptop, we are going to be talking BC. We are going to identify projects and we are going to run them as a Black consciousness movement of individuals whose minds are enjoying the freedom of having removed the shackles of oppression. If you do any business, let that business be pro-Black consciousness without apology. I've got a business that people don't even understand why I gave it that name. I gave it the name and I call it Sparkling Tower. In that business, you have a Black person breaking chains, and I call it breaking the chains, because you can only sparkle as a tower if you break the chains of oppression. One day it will be understood, but it is in a forgotten village for a good reason, to say that it doesn't have to be in town. It comes to this village to break the chains of isolation and being forgotten and oppression, to say that it is able to attract people to this place. Now, those are the things that we must teach, but those are the things that we must live.
That's a mouthful, Comrade Mark.
Yeah.
Now, in our topic, we say developing Black youth for self-reliance,
yeah,
prosperity and liberation. Now, I want to latch on what we've just said.
Yeah.
Sparkle waters breaking the chains.
Yeah.
Now, when you break the chains, the implication there is the one of freedom, liberation.
Yeah.
Now, the topic speaks about developing Black youth for liberation.
Yeah.
One might ask, liberation from what? And then we see developing Black youth for prosperity.
Yeah.
How do I prosper when the milieu is such that is everyone for himself, God for us all? Those two concepts.
Okay, thank you. You can't prosper alone. I think that's the first thing that we need to understand. You can't prosper alone. And that's the business ethos that I apply. You can't prosper alone. That is why if a young Black person comes to me and says, I have a concept, I say, what's your concept? Says, I need your venue. I can be able to organize this artist, that artist, and the other artist. Like a young man called Tlokonolo Moalusi, who's organizing events, comes to me and says, this is what I want to do. I see the venue. It has helped me dream.
Okay.
Okay. So you don't prosper alone. You say to him, fine, let's work on it. Let us work on the commercial side. This is you. This is what you gain. This is what I gain. Let's work. So you can't, prosperity cannot be achieved on your own, because if it is prosperity that you achieve on your own, it means that it will be in your interest that others should remain down. You can't do that. Okay. Now, liberation from what? As Black people, we are isolated from capital, from access to capital.
Okay.
We are isolated from opportunities. We are isolated from the market. We are kept away from the real economy. We are. Now, where things are now beginning to go is that now because there is saturation that is beginning to happen in the cities and the suburbs, you are having this big business now going into the townships. In no time, they will be in the villages. And each time they come in there, they are suffocating the little shops and the little businesses that we have in our own areas. They come and they become price competitive and all these other things that they are able to do because they've got the muscle to do so. Okay. Now, if you are a Black person and you run a Black-owned operation, what you are seeking to do is to achieve liberation. As a Black person, what is the one thing that keeps you backwards or keeps you referring to a white person as a boss? It is because this guy is going to pay your salary at the end of the month. You are depending on him to pay your salary at the end of the month. he's a bigger boss to you than Cyril Ramaphosa will ever be in the private sector. You depend on him. Okay. Now, when a Black person then establishes a business, dependency on the white person gets reduced or gets diminished.
Okay.
When dependency on others that oppress you is diminished, and you are able to exercise your freedom, it's called liberation. Now, there are things that you are able to achieve within your little milieu, but fully understanding that there are things that still need to be achieved in the broader milieu. If we fail to realize, Azania, true liberation for a Black person is not going to happen. All we will have is survival within the realms of the milieu that we are given a space to breathe in. Because those things that we identified as being important for the liberation of a Black person would not have been achieved. Because we would not have touched mining, we would not have touched the land, we would have not touched the oceans, we would not have touched the system in terms of which the means of production is owned. We would not have touched all those things. We will touch things in the little milieu where we are, and basically be the way Richard Maponya used to be in apartheid South Africa. That is what we would do.
Okay. No, I think I hear you. Comrade Mark, we as I hear you talk, I mean, as I hear you ooze with this knowledge, one idea comes to mind. We haven't touched it, maybe it's a discussion for another day. The idea of how do we move with, like you've said, people want to do things, they prosper, and they prosper together, not alone. You want to find a niche and occupy a space and have some control or some degree, and that is what you call liberation. That might have led us to then, how do we move from capitalism to socialism? Or how do we preach socialist orientation and behavior within a capitalist economic system that commands how business happens? So that's what I'm saying, maybe there's a debate for another day. I would have allowed someone else, but I'm looking at my time, and I say, as we go to closure now, in the last 3 minutes or so, let me afford you this opportunity to just give us your concluding ideas on this particular topic, and probably reflect and give us some recommendations in terms of this rich philosophy, which is an outlook on life, Black consciousness. What should be done? Or rather, should I say it like Muntu used to ask, quo vadis Black consciousness? So your concluding remarks as we close off, my tower, Mfikoe.
Sure. Firstly, it's a statement of commitment. I accept that I have learned the Black consciousness and know it well. A statement of commitment from my side is, if AZAPO has got any workshop, any school where it is to teach Black consciousness and need those amongst us that understand the philosophy to come and share it, as having learned it and lived it, I'm available. The second part is that I would want to challenge all of us to actually organize and ensure that this philosophy does not die, because we would then have rendered meaningless the submission made by Stephen Pantupiko when he said, I would rather die for an idea that will live forever than live for an idea that will die. We will kill it if we don't teach it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a mouthful. We thank you for your thought-provoking insights that you shared with us in Tate Comrade Mark Mfikoe. I refer to you as my president, my president of AZASCO, but also my fellow academic person. I resisted to get into some other issues because we were in the same field. I allowed you to speak. We'll talk some of these things offline. But anyway, thank you, Dr. Mfikoe. And I know that on behalf of the AZAPO online political education, it's not the last time that we are interacting with you. We hope that we will host you in future to engage you and to get the practical side of doing this thing, the practical side of developing self-reliance, prosperity, and also liberation, all right? We were very thankful for your time. And as we close, let me say to the viewers out there and the listeners that the next week, Sunday, we will be hosting another discussion that will be facilitated by one of our comrades. And the topic is the Electoral Reform Concord Judgment and its implications to South African politics. And our guests there will be playing host to Ibrahim Fakir and Comrade Kolisile Mazaza. They will be the ones that will be sharing with us next week. So thank you very much, viewers. And as we close off, we will close off with our opening song. I don't know whether you want to say your goodbyes to the viewers in Tate Mfikoe before I close off with the song.
Yes. I appreciate their audience. I appreciate their contributions. I've seen their submissions in the chat box. I just want to say, I owe my life to AZAPO. And when AZAPO has got a need, I will be there. Look after yourselves, comrades. Aman.
Away to Comrade Mark.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Listen, the struggle was not red. I experienced it, being deprived, being oppressed, even confused. It's enough now, we're taking the power back. We're stronger than before, we're prouder, too strong. The worst is over. From Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar, from Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar.
Thank you very much. Up until we meet next week, Sunday. Comrade Mark, thank you very much.
Take care.